Hello students and welcome. We're going to be talking about multi-step equations today. We're going to kind of encounter most things you guys will see in multi-step equations. This is about as hard as they get. We're not going to be talking about some kind of groupings like where they divide and stuff like that by a number in more than one term, but otherwise most of everything you see in multi-step equations will be today. In a previous video, if you guys remember, I went over the steps for solving a multi-step equation. The four general steps we follow are to distribute first, if you can. If not, you move on to the next thing, or ungroup. And then combine like terms. So those are same type of terms on the same side of the equal sign. And then move the variable to one side. And then after you've done that, you should be just left with a two-step equation at most, generally speaking. So you just solve at that point. So let's go through a couple of examples just to kind of go over what we're doing today. So first example I'm going to go over, this is kind of just a review of something we did in a previous lesson. That is a multi-step equation where you have to combine like terms. At least that's the first step that you run into. So looking at number 2 here, if you look at it, I drew this line because that kind of tells me that's where the equal sign is, right? That tells me I can't combine like terms on anything that's on the other side of that line. Okay, so for example, looking at this side of the line, I see I have a couple of terms that have an n in it. So those would be like terms, right? So I can combine those. And again, when I'm combining like terms, I always take the sign in front of it with it when I combine it. Okay, so when we look at these, I'm going to zoom in here just a tad bit. When we combine these, you guys can see they're both positive, so that's just simple 7n plus 5n. So 7 plus 5 would be 12n. And then that 15 is still in front. So 15 plus 12n. Okay, on this side, both terms have an n, so you can combine them as well. They're both positive, just like over here, so 8n plus 7n would be 15n. Okay. Now, next step is to move the variable to one side. Now, if I move the 15n over to this side, there'd be nothing left over here, right? So the variable has to get moved to this side. Okay, this is where a lot of students get confused. You have, if there's only a variable on one side, that's the side you're moving the variable to. Okay, you're only moving it, you're going to move it to that side. So that means we want to move the 12n. So we're going to minus 12n to each side. If I moved the 15n, that would leave 0, and then I just have to move the variable or the number back over. It's going to be an extra step if I did that. I mean, it's still possible you could do that if you wanted to. You're just giving yourself more work to do. So 15n minus 12n is going to be 3n, right? And then I still have 15 over here, so one step equation left over. I can solve that, right? I want to separate the n and the 3, so I divide by 3 to each side because the 3 was multiplying, so you divide to get rid of it, and that'll leave me with 5 is equal to n. And that's my answer. Okay? Not too tough, right? What you're going to see today that's going to be a little bit different is you're going to see some grouping mixed in here. So some things that are distributing. So you're going to see the parentheses, right? So we talked about before where you could divide to get rid of something that's multiplying here. That only works if there's only one term on the other side. When there's two terms, it gets kind of complicated. So we are going to actually distribute at this point in a multi-step equation. So distribute means you take that number in front of the parenthesis, and it has to be in front of it, right? And it's only the one number in front of it. If there's more than one term in front, it's just the one right next to the parenthesis that distributes. And you distribute into your parenthesis, just like that. Okay? That gives you negative 8x plus 38 is equal to negative 7 times x is negative 7x. And negative 7 times a negative 6 is a positive 42. The answer to the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. Bonus points if you understand that reference. Okay, next step, we've distributed. We're going to look for like terms. Left side, I don't see any like terms. Right side, I don't see any like terms. So No like terms to combine. Next step is to move the variable to one side. So we're going to add, it doesn't really matter which one we move. I'm going to add the 7x because I should have added the 8. It's fine. No, I changed my mind. Again, you're going to get the same answer either way. Doesn't matter. But if you can do it, the way I'm going to do it is going to save me an extra step later. If you can do it where it stays positive, that's always going to be, or it might save you an extra step. So I'm going to add 8x to each side. Gives me 38 is equal to negative 7 plus 8 is just 1, right? So just x plus 42. See, if I had done the other way, I would have been left with negative x, and I would have to divide by a negative at some point to get rid of it. So now it's just a one-step equation. So I'm going to minus 42 to each side, minus 42, and that gives me negative 4. So negative 4 is equal to x. And that's my answer. Not too bad, right? Not too tough. Really just distribute it and move the variable. One-step equation. Not as difficult as it looks. I mean, it looks like it's a lot, right? But it gets smaller very, very quickly. Let's look at some more challenging ones. Let's look at number 10 here. So number 10, again, we start by looking for things to distribute, right? Our steps for solving multi-step equations is we want to distribute or ungroup things first. So look at number 10. I've got a 6n plus 8 in front of the parenthesis. This is where I was like talking about you only distribute the number in front of the parenthesis. So I'm only distributing this 8. And again, when we distribute, we kind of look at or bring that sign in front with it, right? So this is a positive 8, which doesn't really change things. But if it had been negative, it would have changed a lot of things. So we're going to multiply by 8 to everything in that parenthesis first. So that leaves me 6n is still there. 8 times n is 8n, so plus 8n. And 8 times negative 5 would be negative 40. And then that's equal to negative 2n plus 40. Now I'm going to look for like terms to combine. On the left side, I see I have two terms with an n, right? So I can combine those. They're both positive, so 6 plus 8 is 14. So 14n minus 40 equals negative 2n plus 40. Okay, next step is to move the variable to one side. Again, it doesn't really matter which one I move. I'm going to move the 2n because it's smaller, but whichever one you choose, you're going to get the same answer. Add 2n, that gives me 16n minus 40 is equal to positive 40. Then I'm going to add 40 to each side. It's a two-step equation at this point, right? Gives me 16n is equal to 80. And then I am going to divide by 16. And I believe that means n is equal to 4. I'm going to double check though. 80 divided by 16, 5. Where did I get 4? 80 divided by 16 is 5. So 5 is my answer. And all done. Not too tough, right? Okay. I'm going to do one more example with you guys. We're going to do a biggie. So let's look at number 14 here. So again, first step is to get rid of all those groups. And I see a couple of groups here, right? I see a couple sets of parentheses. So this first set of parentheses has a negative 2. That's pretty easy. I'm going to distribute the negative 2. The second set of parentheses does not have a number, right? It just has a minus. Now, when you subtract something, that still needs to apply to both terms. We usually think of this as a negative 1 that you would then distribute to each term there. And really what you're trying to do is just change the signs on everything in there, because that's what happens when you subtract something anyway. If it's positive, it becomes negative, right? When you subtract it, you're taking it away. If it's negative, you would then add. If you subtract a negative, it's like adding, right? So we're going to go through distribute. And so we would get negative 2 times 5 is negative 10a. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. And then we would get negative a. So negative a or minus a. And then negative times negative 2 would be positive 2. So plus 2. And that equals negative 8a plus 3a still. Okay, next step is to combine like terms. And we got lots of like terms to combine. We're going to start with the left side. So I've got a negative 10a and I've got a negative a. So again, when we combine, we take the sign with it when we combine it. So it's negative and a negative, right? Negative 10 minus another 1 would be negative 11. Negative 11a. And then I've got a positive 4 and a positive 2 that I can combine. So that would be 4 plus 2, which is 6. So plus 6. Okay. On the other side of the equation, I got a negative 8 and a positive 3. So that's like negative 8 plus 3, which would be negative 5, right? Negative 5a. And that sets up a two-stepper here. So, well, not quite yet. Are we ready to look at the two-step? So we still need to go to our next step, which is we've distributed, combined like terms. Now we're going to move the variable to one side. Now again, one side only has a variable. So that's the side I want all the variables to go to. So I'm going to take this negative 11a and I'm going to move it over there. So I'm going to add 11a to each side. Add 11a. That's going to give me 6 is equal to 6a. Now we can think of that's a one-step equation, right? We divide by 6, and a is equal to 1. Okay? Ooh, that looks like it was a lot of work, but it really wasn't, right? I distributed a couple things, and then I just combined them, and then it's just 2 steps, right? That's not too tough. But sometimes we look at these and we're like, oh, this is too big. I don't even know where to start. You start with these steps. Okay? If you just follow those 4 steps, it gets small very, very quickly. It's not that tough. Again, if you have any questions or confused about anything or anything at all, just ask your teachers. We're here to help. You just got to ask us questions. I'll see you guys out there.